How's everyone going? This is another episode of The Mind Show, and today's guest is a good friend of mine, a guy who's been around in the memory community for years, from the beginning, Boris Konrad. He's from Germany. He's a researcher in memory, a neuroscientist, and also an avid speed stacker, which is that stacking cup stuff. And today we're going to be talking about his research, which has just gotten a bunch of attention on the news. We're going to talk about his memory techniques. We're going to talk about his speed stacking techniques and history. And that pretty much wraps it up. Quick shout out if you haven't done this in terms of memory research. A company I work with, Dart Neuroscience, is doing an extreme memory challenge. It's very simple. I talk about it a lot, but it's really easy. Just go to their website, extremememorychallenge.com, take this 5-minute test, and you're helping memory research. They're trying to develop a memory drug. So please go and do that. They're helping make this video possible. So without further ado, let's dive into it. Here is Boris Konrad, my man.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Mind Show. My name is Dellis, I'm the host, and today we have Boris Konrad, a legend in the memory sports world. Welcome to the show, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. Where are you right now?
In the Netherlands, in Nijmegen, where I'm living now for nearly 3 years, and right now I'm in my office at the Dellis Institute for Brain Cognition and Behavior, where I spend my time doing research when I'm not on the road for either training memory or computing memory.
Yeah, I think that's the fascinating thing about you is you're obviously a high-level competing memory athlete, but you're also studying the brain too, right? That's what you're...
Yeah, I did my PhD in psychology and neuroscience in Munich at the Max Planck Institute, actually studying the brains of memory athletes. So in my PhD thesis, I looked into MRT with memory athletes to see what's happening in their brains. And just recently we had a paper accepted at Neuron, quite established journal in the field, where we published some of these findings. And after my PhD, I got lucky that I can keep doing my research, and of course that I moved here to the Netherlands.
So here the question is, why haven't you tested me? Which athletes are you testing?
We tested athletes that were based in Europe for funding reasons, so expensive enough to fly in people from England and Scandinavia to Munich. So we sadly had to skip on the Americans.
Got it. How?
As well.
Okay. And so, what were the results? What have you found, or what was the exact testing you've been doing?
We've done tons of testing, so I could talk about it for hours probably, but the main findings are compared to a control group of similar age, intelligence, educational background. We do find no actual differences in brain structure. So the size of the brain, but also different brain regions are not distinguishable. It's quite interesting because there are some studies looking into groups and that do find group effect on that kind of analysis. But if you go on a bit, it gets more interesting. So when you look, for example, at the connection level, how different brain regions communicate with each other, then we do find quite interesting findings.
Interesting, yeah, because I think the first time I heard about it with Moonwalking with Einstein, they talk about the cab drivers who learn the knowledge, and they said that after studying it, their hippocampus grew. Right? Yeah. And then I've heard other things where if you train your brain, your hippocampus grows. But you're saying that maybe that's not necessarily the case?
It seems to be the case for some form of training. Obviously, the cab driver study is well established and replicated. With other forms of training, it's sometimes a little less clear, but there are certainly forms of training that lead to so-called neurogenesis, to new neurons being built in the hippocampus. But training for memory competitions does not seem to be a form of achieving that. And I don't know if that's sad news. It's actually quite interesting because it means something else is happening, because obviously performing people is highly increasing when they train. And it actually, in our opinion, just shows that it's not a hippocampus-dependent form of learning. You're just training over and over, but instead you're finding maybe a more efficient way of memorizing information that utilizes well more different memory systems, and by that different parts of your brain. And we actually do find that because we do find increased connectivity between us brain regions and the hippocampus. So the hippocampus certainly has its role, but it doesn't get trained itself in the form of memory training memory athletes do.
Interesting. I was working with a neuroscientist a few years ago. He made a speech at the U.S. Championship, I think, in 2012. And his research, he does a lot of stuff with Alzheimer's, and I think what he found was, at least what he says in his speeches about his research, is that people with larger than average hippocampus tend not to get Alzheimer's. He showed some correlation between that. And then the next step was saying that training your memory or exercising your brain increases the size of your hippocampus, but maybe that's not the case. So I'll have to figure out another way to... What?
It's not the case for the memory athletes the way we tested them. Actually, the same group that did the CAP driver testing already did a study on memory athletes many years back who were on a much, much lower level and much less people, but they also did not find it. So
interesting.
It seems to be consistent.
Interesting. Very cool. I would love to talk about your very early memory days. Like because when was your first competition?
In 2003.
Wow. Okay. So I had Ben on the show last year, and I think he started around the same time, right?
I think he's even a little earlier. A year or two before me, but I think there are not many veterans that long in the field anymore.
No, it might be just you guys. So tell me, how did you get started, first of all? When did you hear about memory training, and what got you interested?
Actually, quite funny. It was in January 2002 that on German national private television there was a show called in German Grips Show, which actually kind of translates to the Mind Show a little bit, where they had a bit like the Brain, which is now on, already people showcasting their different mind sports, and one of them was Dr. Günther Karsten, back then the German memory champion and kind of most competitive German memory athlete. And he was on there. He showed that he can do something great, but more importantly, he also got to train an actress who was playing also in real life the little dumb women. Most people knew she wasn't, but it was kind of the fun aspect of it. And the intended plot that people think, well, if she can do it, I can do it, worked well for me. So I needed to know more about it. I was a year before doing final exams in Germany, which I did in 2003 for my high school. And I was always decent in school without spending too much effort on it. And the promise that there is a way to make learning easier, maybe get better grades for these exams, and later on at university sounded quite appealing. So I first got a book, as many people do, read a bit about it, used some locations for some exams, but didn't think too much of it. It helped me a bit, yeah, okay, but then the book got covered in dust, as it often happens. And a year later, they had another episode of the show, a new episode, and there was a guy on there, Malo Galinski, who did not happen to carry on with memory sports, so people nowadays maybe will not recognize that name. You can find him in the rankings. He was on there exactly my age, and they asked him, how did you start? And he said, I saw the program a year ago, I got a book because I wanted to do better in the final exams, and no, he was standing there memorizing a number with 1,000 digits. And I was like, what the heck, like, I also got a book, and that's no way possible. So what I did back then, ICQ was the Facebook of the time, so I went on ICQ, and he had a quite unique name. I found him. He told me all about Memory XL, this new amazing club that was just founded in Germany, which I'm now the president of for more than 10 years. That had a great website where you could practice. He mentioned me a better book, the book by Günther Karsten, which I then got, and that kind of got me into it. So I then started to really practice it, and kind of still was the aim to do well in academia, to do good at university, and it certainly helped me a lot with that. But back then I also discovered via Memory XL that memory is also a sport, and I wanted to give it a go. Yeah,
and then so since 2003, what are your like stats? Like, have you won anything? I mean, I'm playing dumb here. Tell the audience what you've done, what records you've had, or.
Yeah, so I, at the beginning, started to see that I maybe have a talent compared to other memory athletes for mostly words and names and faces. It seems to be a pattern that there are athletes who excel in these two disciplines compared to others. So quite early on, I managed to win German in words, and not much later, 2 or 3 years later, I got the world record in the discipline. Back then was 199 words, I think. That was my first world record. And then I proceeded over the years to beating the world records for words and names and faces, short and long versions of that quite a few times. Nice. With the German team, who I got lucky to be a part of because it has even stronger athletes than me. I won the team title at the World Championships. I done it live, I think 5 times by now.
Nice.
And I reached the finals of the Extreme Memory Tournament.
Yes, 2015.
By Nelson's team. When it was, I think, seeded number 8 or 9, so I managed to reach the final.
That was awesome. That was such a cool, like, I felt really proud of the competition, and obviously for you, because it was like, it just showed that, not that you're not the best, but that anyone on any given day can, like, get to the finals if they're, like, having a great day, and you were just doing really well. That was awesome.
It's maybe a little too many positive emotions because I then ended up messing up a 3-1 lead in the finals. Close to winning it because I had images against Hannes and was then the favorite for that discipline and probably also for winning the thing. And had messed that up and gave him that. He well deserved it. So I think I got myself a name there also by being passionate about memory, and I think like it's sometimes summarized that people can hear in the room if I did good or not so good.
Yeah. Boris is known, for those who don't know, for his really loud, exciting outbursts of positive emotion and also negative. He's very well versed in German curse words. It's the best thing to watch. Although the last XMT, you were very like you toned it down a little bit. I was disappointed. I was waiting for these.
I mean, like it has to. I never played it, so people wondered if I played it. No, it's just what came out, and it's. If I know, I probably won that one because I pressed first and feel real confident. Like I maybe am less outgoing. I actually won it. While when I won against Simon that specific year, I was totally. I made the half finals. That's obviously the best I could do because Simon won the year before. He I think won all the matches by with no points against him the whole tournament through. So it was like, I reached the half finals, but Simon is in the mood. I won't be able to beat him, and then I won the surprise event and didn't expect it. So let it out. I think that kind of confused him because then he messed up the names, and I couldn't believe I beat him in names back at that year. In this format, he was a champion in names, and so it was just a surprise and made the outburst. And the same thing, if I have it all set in, I'm confident I got it correct, it's all good, and then I make a mistake, then that's the word.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and put a few of the clips here so people can see it, if you don't mind. So another thing you're very passionate about and also a champion in is the speed stacking, right?
It's true. So they're
stacking cups.
On my level, I'm a champion. It's stacking cups up, down. I don't have any in my office. I was about to show you. What can also put a clip if you like. It's a big thing in the US, but also in Asia. It's in total much more people than memory sports has. And I'm only a champion in my age division there. So it's actually a thing where kids, mostly teenagers, still beat us a long way. So
because they have smaller hands or what? Lighter arms?
You think Donald should be good at it? No, just
yes. Yeah.
No, I think it's basically when you start doing it. Because we now have a lot of, not kids anymore, young adults in the collegiate division in sports stacking. We have many more age divisions than in memory. Collegiate means 19 to 24 years of age. And there's now a good number of mostly American and German students who started when they were just 12 or 13, and they still get better than they ever were, and like totally crush any records I previously had set in that age division many years back. Because if you're young, your brain is more plastic. You learn these movements which are not typically part of your life much faster and get much more proficient in them. And I think that's the most likely explanation. I started as a young adult. I started sports stacking when I was just 18 or 19. And these people started when they were 8 or 9 or maybe 12, 13, and then they just learned it much faster. So I guess if the sport keeps doing well, it looks like it's still quite popular. It's not decreasing in popularity. In quite a few years, the records will actually be in the young adults age division, as you do see in a lot of the Olympic sports. So in the stuff where it's really being fast, in the moment. That's often where people in their early 20s do best. And I think we will have the same thing in sports stacking when there are enough people there who started as kids and just kept going.
Yeah. Excuse my ignorance, or I'm sorry if this sounds bad, but for the audience listening, I'm sure that to most people, stacking cups does not evoke the thought of sport, right? But it's such an obscure thing, like why cups, why stacking them, you know? How did this sport come around? I mean, obviously someone was stacking cups and was like, hey, how fast can I do this? But how did it, I mean, it's a phenomenon. I mean, it's as popular as Rubik's Cube competitions, right? I mean, essentially.
Yeah, a little less.
Maybe a little less, but it's probably more popular than memory sports, right?
Yeah, it's well more popular than memory sports.
So do you know the history of the sport?
Yeah, I think I do know it quite well. I'm surprised a memory athlete asked me that question, but that's fine.
What's the quote for?
I mean, like, people say the same about every sports, right?
Yeah.
Don't move at all. I just move our fingers. So in sports stacking, at least there's some movement involved.
Yeah, you could.
I do think both is sport. So chess is part of the Olympic committee internationally, and in chess there's even less movement than in memory sports. So movement is maybe not necessarily determining if something is a sport or not.
Right.
Sports stacking came from. First, it came actually from Florida, so your region, from someone who was teaching but also active in a youth circus, and it was just like a juggling variation, juggling with cups.
Yeah, fair enough.
It was picked up by Bob Fox, who is well known in that sport, who was a teacher in Denver, Colorado, and he found it amazing and thought it's a great thing to get his kids engaged in a sport that's new and also not so related to other sports. So your talent that you maybe got all your life didn't make too much difference there.
Got
So it's a sport you can do indoors when maybe gymnasium isn't possible to use. And it's also something you can quickly do at the beginning of class. And he just liked it as a teacher. And he liked it so much that he then went on making it a business, SpeedStacks, and quitting his teaching career and going to all the teacher conventions in the US for many years, often with his own kids, who, because of that, mostly Emily Fox, his oldest daughter, got quite famous because her YouTube video has, I don't know how many millions of clicks. And then, YouTube, he did that all through the late 90s. So Emily Fox is about our age, but most kids who do sports stacking probably still think she is 13 because a video from, I think, 1997 or something is what made her famous when she did it. And so he educated it to teachers, and then YouTube, or just video in the internet in general, made it travel across the globe, made it more popular. And then I think that was the driving factor, that kids then were not just challenging their mates in their class, where maybe then 2 or 3 were really passionate and the other liked it, but just like with any sport, and there were no groups, and suddenly these groups were kind of forming virtually over the internet. And there were many of these kids who are really good at it. They do it each day 2-3 hours. They're then connected with 30 other stackers in the world. We do no video over the internet, and if one of it's a great time, he will just scream even louder than I do. It's a really big thing in sports stacking to scream when you did a good time, so it's perfect fun. And we'll show their timer to the camera, and they just keep pushing themselves. And nowadays you have sports stacking associations in 30 different countries. You have in Germany lots of different clubs. We have the World Championships, which traditionally were in the US, but now for quite a few years are traveling. We had them in Germany twice. I was to Canada for it. This April I will go to Taiwan.
Wow.
We'll be in Asia this year, and they attract hundreds of people. And as you said, it's a bit comparable to maybe speed cubing, that it's mostly kids who get into it, and they mostly get into it not by being encouraged by seniors to do it because they don't exist in sport yet, but by the internet and their peers who also love to do it.
Interesting. And so talk to me a bit about what goes into stacking cups and how to become a champion, right? Because in my head, I don't know much about it, but for memory sports, you start out, you improve your memory, but maybe you develop your systems to more complex ones. Is there an equivalent to speed stacking? Like, if you were going to train me to become a champion, obviously you'd probably have to teach me the basic moves, but then if I wanted to get to the next level, are there other training strategies, or I mean, what is it like?
So mostly it's really repetition to just get faster.
Just muscle memory, right?
It's like the pattern is always the same. People
Okay.
wonder, do we always have different patterns? No, the patterns are set. We always do the same patterns and kind of try to optimize them. Then you have like different forms of ways of doing it. Mostly practicing is most important, but you do see kind of these kids who are expert in it talking about different styles. And then there's a style named after some of the most famous stackers who are really good, and some maybe holds a cup with a pinky a little different, or put another cup down first, so moves pattern around. And nowadays many kids do what traditionally was a left-handed style, where you like start on the opposite side, but then you have the first cup up maybe a tenth of a second faster, and so they're like optimizing the strategy in that way. I do think if you just keep going, as also some do, and I did, keeping your style, you also will get a lot faster. Another component coming into it, which in sports taking also maybe in general in the world of Germans are then famous for, is in a competition, you only have 3 attempts. Okay. So in particular in the US, they had it many years that they had the stars on YouTube, like fastest kids on YouTube, who had like the best time on YouTube scene ever. Like they can do the whole pattern if it's really well in 5.0 seconds, nowadays even faster. But they didn't win the competition. The German won the competition because you only have 3 attempts, and then they go 3 times really fast, and because all the ever practices go fast. Yeah. But like 1 out of 10 times they make it, and then they're super happy. But 9 out of 10 times everything falls down. And
so if the cup falls, you lose, right? You don't.
You lose time. You can fix your fumble. It's part of the game. Fix your fumble. It's corrected. Yeah, but obviously you will not get the best time anymore if you need to like grab a cup from the back of the table. So as I said, the longest discipline takes like 5 seconds. The short one's 1.5 to 2, and the middle one 2 to 3 seconds. And the long one like 5 to 8 seconds, depending on the age division. So if you have to grab a cup, a second is gone. You can forget about it. In Germany, we had a national coach all the time who really made the kids and us practice to also have a safe time, which is maybe like 10-20% slower than your fastest time, but you get it in 2 out of 3 attempts you try to go for it. And then you do that in the first attempt, have already a good time standing, and then you have 2 times to shoot for your best, and it works or not. But often that safe time wasn't good enough, because in theory, training, they were faster as a kids, but they just do it in a competition. So suddenly there is this focus component, this mental component in it quite strongly, which also appealed to me as a memory athlete. And I still do have much more passion for memory sports than for sports stacking. I did get into it because I saw it on TV also, and it was reported that there are studies, and they are out there. I checked them, I read all the papers that confirm benefits of sports stacking also for cognitive skills.
Interesting.
I think it's a little bit exaggerated in some of the promotional material, but the basic idea is totally true, that it's good for concentration, but also even cognitive tasks. As is also if you learn to juggle, that's the same thing.
Eye coordination, ping pong.
And it's also true for sports stacking, and that's how I heard about it. And I don't think it made my memory better, but the sports stacking competitions, I guess, helped me also to get better times in memory competitions.
Maybe focus too, right?
Exactly. In early years, I would happen quite often in speed cards. I think first years people were not really afraid of me leading them before speed cards because they got bad. I will fail speed cards 2 times. And I think now in the last, I don't know, what is it, 5 years, I have 90% of all my speed cards attempts in competitions good, or at least one of the 2. Because this kind of training also helped me to get then a safe time done in the competition, and if it goes really well, I can do attack in 26 seconds, but if I can't get it in 60 seconds in the competition, it's not actually that much worse. It's not so valuable if I can do that. So now I'm quite constant in having 1 or 2 attempts in 32 seconds, and that's often good enough to at least secure the top position in the field. And if I get it on the first attempt, I can still try 22nd, or nowadays 26 seconds is like, good job.
Slow,
really good. So I could still shoot for the records a few years back. Then in the second attempt, if I had a good, say, first one that would secure my maybe top 3 position or whatever I was going for.
Yeah. And so let's switch to memory again. So what do you currently use for your systems for cards and numbers?
For cards, I use a 2-card system, which is basically the band system in a German adaptation I made myself and now shared also with some of the other memory athletes in Germany.
And you put 2 cards. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you talked about it with Ben before. So 2 cards get into one image by the 2 symbols giving the first consonant. The first card's value gives the mid vocal, and the third gives another consonant, and then you just make words out of it. And so each combination of 2 playing cards, 2,704 of them, has a specific aim, which I practiced over time, and it took me to get it to a level that I was as fast as I was with this card system I used before. Didn't even have a PVO or anything fancy. I really had, for the first 10 years at Memory Sports, I had 1 card and 1 image. It's always the same. And the guy I copied it from, Steffen Bütow, told me you will never be able to do under 45 seconds. I got to 25 seconds with it. So I'm still wondering if all the time I put into the other system, maybe I could do it at 20. I have no idea. Yeah. But that was what I changed it from. And yeah, your question, I put 2 images on 1 location. I kind of, in memory competitions, do that in nearly all of the disciplines.
Got it. And then for the numbers, what do you have?
Numbers is a subset of that, so it's 1,000.
So 3 digits.
Number system being a subset from the card system, so it's a consonant, vocal consonant as a part of the bigger system.
Nice. And what are your top scores for cards in practice?
In practice, I think on Memory League it's 24 seconds, and with real cards 26.
Okay, wow. And then with numbers in 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes, in practice, 360, 380. In Nemo Camp, I think 380. I tried 400 a few times, and so far didn't get it, but something around there. It's one of the disciplines where I still struggle in competitions sometimes to get over 300. But I have a gap in here and in there, and it costs me a couple of points with the traditional way memory sport works.
Gotcha.
I have a personal best in Memory League of 17 seconds. So if I
for 80 digits, right?
Sorry?
For the 80 digits in 1 minute.
Yeah, 80 digits in in
That's
17 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
And I have also a Guinness Book World Record that I did on a Chinese show where 15 3-digit numbers flashed like 1 per second.
Yeah.
So I also got that down to, in training, my best were like 30 or 40 in a row. So it would be like 120 digits flashing at 1 3-digit image per second, 40 times after each other. So,
wow.
My bests in numbers are quite good, but there I still lack the consistency. So I like the Ben card system because it always gives me the chance to puzzle it together. And it's when I go under 30 seconds, I super rarely can just click all the cards through. Usually I tend to have 3 locations maybe missing, so that's quite a lot with the system. So it would be 12 cards, but then I can look all go through the images. Oh, and then I got it. That's a fish, and it was here. And I love that. It feels so great to then find it. And with the number system, it just doesn't work because I would need to go through 1,000 images, and the recall time of 4 minutes, of course, does not allow that. So. I need to find a way to get these images to stick better, that I can do numbers without repetition. Of course, when I know the score like 32 seconds, it's like a standard score for me in Memory League. And this online competition matches we now had, I did review it once. So I often lose against people then who maybe try 28 seconds and do that without a revision. But if I go for 28 seconds without revision, it still feels for me that I have the same number of gaps as if I went in 18 seconds. Right. And that only the revision will fix it more. So I need to work on that to get better.
Got it. And what's I'm going to wrap up now, but I'd like to know what you're up to. What's next? Are you trying to compete somewhere? Are you working on another system? What's the big next thing for you?
I'm first happy to welcome you to Germany, and we will run the Memory League event together in Germany.
End of May. Yeah.
End of May, that will be great. So I mentioned it, I'm already for more than 10 years the president of Memory XL, and I'm super excited about how memory sports is changing now. Yeah. It's a bit of uncertain times, and that can be frightening, and it's annoying how some politics are important sometimes, but I'm happy that we have our team here in Europe, and we will run again the South German Championships, the North German Championships, including an open competition and the traditional formats, and I will be the head in charge for both of them. And then we also have the Memory League event. So for the next month in memory sports, I focus on that. But then I'm already looking forward to competing in Memory League events again. So I'm happy to see already on the horizon in a year that there's an International Memory League event again. And maybe by not being at too many other memory competitions before, people don't think too much of me when they think of who to look out for. So I can maybe score nicely just in this online competition where we play Memory League online and reach the finals again. So
I hope
still kind of confident, and in this format, it's kind of suiting well my strengths in memory sports.
It's good for an athlete like you.
Still have chances in beating basically anyone who's out there. And that's what I like in this format. It's much less clear who's going to win than in this traditional 10 discipline event. I mean, like Alex and Marvin also changed it quite a bit. So after a few years where it's always been the same 3-4 people, suddenly there are 2 more names in the mix, but it's still maybe now 4 or 5 people who might win such an event if they're all there. Where in Memory League, it's close to everyone competing actually has a chance to win it. And I think that should be the future, will be the future of memory sports. And looking forward to showcasing that in Europe.
Very good. Thanks again for being on the show. I'm going to show some of your clips through this talk just because they're fun to watch. But thanks again. I'll see you in Germany soon, very soon.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me again. If there's anyone who has questions about science we do, research on memory athletes, just feel free to reach out to me.
I'll put your information below.
That's perfect. This paper I just mentioned is at this moment accepted but not published yet. They need to do all the formatting. I guess I'll let the world know when it is out. So anyone really interested in the research behind superior memory in any form, not just studying memory athletes, would be super excited if anyone is watching who believes to be part of the so-called highly superior autobiographical memory people who have a super good autobiographical memory but maybe can't memorize a deck of cards. I would love to hear from such people because like all the forms of superior memory is what interests me science-wise, research-wise, and I also have the plan to keep working in that field. So I would love to hear from people who might have a form of super memory that's not related to memory sports. Just reach out to me. I would be really grateful for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll put your contact info below in case you're one of these people. Reach out to him for sure. Thanks again, Boris. You're the man. You're a good guy. I can't wait to compete against you and run a competition with you. So I'll see you then. Awesome. Thanks for being on my show, man. Take care.
Thanks a lot. See you. Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.